Fahrenheit in the picture.
What's up, horror fiends? We're back. Three corners of horror. I am Ricky Grimes, back with my two brothers, JR and Joe. JR, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing a little something different with this one. We are doing an indie spotlight. So stand back, let's watch, and let's see what we think about these indie films.
Something a little different. How about you, Joe? Did it do it for you?
Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool little
different?
movie. Yeah, I like checking out something different. But
Yeah,
cool
absolutely.
it was a good idea.
Yeah, when the idea was brought to me to do some independent films, I was all for it, man. Like, I think indie films deserve a lot of,
Yes.
a lot of recognition as well. You know what I'm saying? We gotta look out for each other. But this film is called Sheep Theater. It's from 2020. It's a YouTube film by Daniel Lotz. This film here was filmed during quarantine, so this is gonna be quite the experiment on this one. So JR, we're gonna start with you. Why don't you talk to us about our character? His name is Dan. What do you got to say about Dan?
Well, immediately we open up the film with our main character walking into a cemetery, standing in front of a tombstone, obviously paying his respects to somebody, which we will talk about later in the film. But yeah, it was interesting because it goes from him paying respect to somebody to the next clip is him basically doing a confessional saying, if you find this video, chances are I'm already dead, and then he goes, yeah, but I'm just gonna let you guys know I'm okay. So it was kind of a little counter to the video, but it was interesting because right off the bat we get a sense that there's more going on with Dan, emotionally, and being the fact that, like you mentioned, it is a film that has to do with being in quarantine too, and during COVID, that his favorite companion at the beginning ends up being alcohol, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate.
What?
You-
Oh, yeah. Honestly, like, you pretty much said the sum of it. Dan was obviously in a depression. Between a loss, the pandemic, it appeared that he had no friends. And pretty much the alcohol created the perfect storm for, him basically losing his mind.
Yeah, Dan was I immediately kind of like just going by his room. Obviously, I felt real connected to the character. Yeah, but you said it, man. He the character suffered a great loss, and while suffering that loss, he's isolated by himself. You said it. Not much friends as far as we can tell, and he's still hung up on that loss, and that loss isn't really trying to let him move on per se. Then comes the alcohol and the isolation. Then comes a sheep, which of course is called Sheep Theater. Joe, why don't you tell us about this sheep? What they meant to Dan? Like, what's going through his psyche when he starts seeing these sheep? Are they real? Or are they not? What's going?
Well, no, I mean, they were real because he contacted a friend who, it seems like he was about to hit his rock bottom, and called a friend, left a voicemail. Friend leaves a voicemail for him saying, "Hey, I got your message. Sorry. I get what you're going through. I'm going to send you something. Look for it in the mail." And then it gets a box of sheep. I mean, they're sent to help him with the loneliness. It's a cute little thing. Honestly, I was kind of worried that this was going to be that Dan lived on a farm and this is going to be like real sheep. And because sheep's could be kind of scary looking, so I kind of didn't really want real sheep.
I guess what I meant was, were they really like moving? Like, were they really like alive?
I mean, I that's kind of the impression I was getting.
Yeah.
I mean, Junior, what do you think?
I mean, it's funny because at first when he gets the sheep, I mean, he starts naming them, which is pretty cool. He's you're was it your baby your was it what the hell was the name
View
of
was another one.
it?
View.
View. And he just started naming them all, and then
Well, they were all distinct too. So us as
yeah,
viewers,
they're all different.
we knew.
Yeah.
It's not only that, is that after a while he started, when he was talking to one in specific, which I think was Baby, which is the main one, right?
Yeah.
So he was with me and your mom, So everything he talked about was me and your mom. So he was treating this as it was a child. And then
that's right. Yeah.
When he walked in and he seen the one start moving, I mean, for me, I would have been scared shitless. I was like, oh, I would bet is the alcohol I'm drinking, but then it starts moving, and then he kind of embraces the fact that these are his companions for during this quarantine. These are his friends. I mean, he played cards with them. He drank with them. It was fun.
I think didn't one cook? I think one was frying an egg.
Yeah.
One was frying an egg because he wasn't in the kitchen, but he was still in the kitchen frying an egg.
Oh, it was interesting the fact that you had these like stuffed animals come to life, and I give him credit on this. As I'm watching it, I'm trying to see where I could see if there's if somebody's holding it, see if there's something like that. I mean, that was pretty well done.
I was sort of like trying to figure out, is there strings? Like where, like,
we should definitely highlight. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I kept on trying not, like pay attention to the movie, but I couldn't stop to like look like, how the fuck are they moving?
Yeah. We should highlight the fact that the Daniel, he filmed this by himself. Essentially, he did pretty much the writing, the directing. He's the main actor in the film. He did all the editing. I'm sure he did all the lighting, sound. I mean, he pretty much did everything. So the fact that he had those effects I would love to ask him how do you do that, especially by yourself. It's probably something really simple, probably with some After Effects or something, but it looked natural. It didn't like nothing was like there was no composite shots or nothing. It felt like it was literally, like you said, somebody's moving it, but you don't see anything. So kudos on that. That was pretty.
The only thing like I thought about, like there was one scene where he's sitting there and he was on the shelf. I'm like, he's got to have a string.
It's probably like a fishing line.
Put it some kind of way. Yeah, they can sit there as he's talking. He's pulling on it. So that's the only way I thought about it.
It's a fishing line probably, and they remove it in post. That's how that's the first thought I would have doing it, but. Nonetheless, he's experienced with it because it came out
about the fishing line.
Yeah, it's an easy move.
I didn't even. I know, but I didn't even think about that either. I'm literally thinking that he like I thought I got all complex on it. I wouldn't. I thought there was a string like behind it. And he's from down here pulling on it. Like,
but that's the thing about it. They're not just moving back and forth. They got some intricate maneuvers. Scenes too.
Yeah. I get the fishing line. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. But all right. Okay. There's another thing in this film too. This entity gets introduced into the film. He thinks it's the spirit of his dead wife, and comes to we come to find out a little more later that it's not all as what it seems in his head. Like Jr. Tell us about this guy. First of all, this entity, what did you take out of it? Was it, I mean, obviously near the end we find out, but your first impressions on when you first saw it?
I think it was still a little bit up in the air, but I like the way they introduced it because, we first get him, seeing the door opening, and closing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he went against your typical cliche trope of horror movies of somebody actually walking to the door as soon as you see it open. I'm not going near there. I'm going to sit right here and let the door close on its own. So he didn't go nowhere near the door until later on in the film. But that and the fact that you had the bottle move. Now the funny thing is the bottle moved away from him. So for me, I was thinking that was like a message that was being sent where the bottles are getting pushed away, and he's just staring at it. But what I kind of like this. Is when we get a glimpse of the entity, it was simple. I mean, you had the red eyes, you had the shadowing. I mean, when it appeared, it didn't feel forced, it didn't feel cheesy.
It was subtle enough, but it was,
it wasn't like in your face or over the top. It was like, the way it came out, and the scene where he's sitting down, and you see the red eyes behind him. I thought that was pretty cool because, he gets a sense of something there, and then when he turns around, of course, it disappears.
Were we led to believe that the spirit was controlling the sheep?
I think they were total opposites. I think that they were total opposites because the funny thing is he calls this guy who's a paranormal expert, supposed paranormal expert, and the first thing the guy tells him, well, sounds like you have a paranormal inquisition.
Yeah, I know. He's like, yeah, really?
He goes, what? So? He goes, yeah, that's our term for a ghost. He goes, yeah, I knew I got a fucking ghost.
No shit, right?
That's why I called you.
Yeah. And then he goes, the guy goes, yeah, well, did you do something to it? He goes, no, man. What do you mean? Why am I gonna? I didn't do nothing wrong with a ghost. I mean, that interaction was pretty funny, but I think it was a lot of foreshadowing because at one point the paranormal investigator told him, so listen, obviously the entity's in the house, it's somebody, and they're trying to give you a message, so you have to do what's possible to find out what the connection, what the message is they're trying to give you. Yeah. But and the funny thing too is the entity wasn't harmful or violent towards him, which was another interesting factor, which other movies would have made it violent, and it wasn't. It was kind of a little subtle.
One of the parts I found funny when the sheep tied him up, he makes the folk. Who did he call? I think it was a paranormal guy.
He called the guy who gave him the sheep.
Yeah. Okay. He was like, the sheep, they turned on me. They tied me up. I gotta say, the dialogue was good. It was funny. Like, there's a one scene when he's talking to, he's like, oh, this is heavy. Like you would be saying stuff like that, But there was like the other scene too, and he's like, I haven't even smoked marijuana yet. Like, my first thought was, man, this guy's smoking some good shit to be saying these things. Joe, what's up? What do you think about what's going on with the paranormal side?
Well, on the like Junior pretty much like summed it up. I mean, I did like the eye. I did like a lot of the eye showing up in the background. I want to say it reminded me of like a little bit of The Exorcist. Kind of when the devil pops up behind the shoulder. So stuff like that. He did a good job. Adam liked the special effect of the entity. I did too. I mean, again, we're discussing indies, so shit, I couldn't do that. So
well, we review these films, we can't review them on the same scale as the big budget films, obviously. So we got to just, we got to appreciate what was done with the budget and the time. Yeah. And the manpower that was allotted to the director and the filmmaker in this particular.
Well, and part of the entity though tied to the death of his wife.
Yes.
I mean, it was a conflict. I'm conflicted on it because like there's, like you said, it could have been, if was real, was it not? The thing was he never fully mourned, and being in quarantine, he was there by himself. So again, we said he was lonely. So not able to move forward, be able to talk about all this, basically put him down in a downward spiral. And that left it open because entities pop up on people who are at their lowest. They don't necessarily go after people who are strong. Mm-hmm. They go after those who in the mind are kind of weak at that moment, like he is.
It's time to say our prayers. You know the routine, but I'll start off. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
The funny part too is when before he ties him up, he's drinking the drink. Oh, this tastes funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
peach and vodka?
Yeah.
And he just that was a stare. I like
the sheep they slipped him a roofie. And the way he was sipping, he was like,
it just tastes funny. He took it.
Yeah, and he just keeps sipping on it.
He's like, who drinks like that? Awesome. All right, so we're gonna go into this now, guys. Pros and cons. Now we're not talking legit like as far as the movie itself, but the pros and cons of working with such a limited budget by himself during a quarantine. Like JR, I know you worked on a lot of stuff yourself. Like you got a basic idea of what the filmmaker went through. So what are your pros and cons that appeared in this film to you?
I mean, the fact that you look at the upside of it, you have more creative control of what you're doing. You're able to, all right, I'm gonna take the shot. Maybe the shot wasn't good. Let me try this. The lighting in this movie was good. It was very good lighting.
I was gonna get there. That's my notes.
Yeah, because you had the candle.
Yeah,
and most of the time you had the
exactly.
candle. The rest of the background was, and you know me, Rick, with the films we do, I love blue lighting. The blue lighting is just it's just fun to use, especially when you're
He
trying
lit
to.
the sheep pretty well. That one shot with the sheep
Yes.
looking in the candle in the background, I got the blue lighting on it.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta remember too. During the pandemic, we had like a boom in found footage films that were coming out, like Host and The Death of a Vlogger. So you had more filmmakers really doing stuff from at home. I mean, but the downside to it is that because the fact that you're limited in the crew,
Mm-hmm.
you have to do the extra work, which I'm sure there was moments where he had basically frustrations and couldn't get a shot right, and you didn't have the extra person saying, oh look, maybe if we film it this direction, for what he did in this film. I'd say the first thing I want to do is pick up a camera and start filming.
Well, I mean, I'm not a filmmaker, so it'd be kind of hard for me to say a lot on it. But as far as pros, it's you have to be creative. I mean,
Yeah.
I totally peeped. Like, I'm not a filmmaker, but I could tell the spots where he put the camera here and he had to run over to the other side to not be in the shot, to then come in to the shot, make it look natural. There was a lot of great shots like that. So honestly, I picked up on that. If I tried to go into filmmaking, I probably would have done the same thing. Like I can get there. It could be a little OCD. So I did enjoy that. It showed all his work. Cons, as you guys said. With what's going on, there. You can't get a crew, so you can't get people to help you, give you another set of eyes, try to
Yeah.
help you, find your vision, because sometimes even your own eyes can get blinded.
Yeah.
As far as making a film by yourself, oh man, it's not as easy as it looks, because if you got to set up the camera, you got to set up the right shots. You want to make sure you got everything lined up how you want it. You got to get the correct lighting. If you're using the mic, got to make sure the mic's not in the camera shot. It's a lot to it by yourself that you got to take into it. And there's a lot of test shots that you got to do before you even run it, because you got to make sure, okay, am I in the frame correctly? Or am I in the right lower, right third? Like where am I in the shot? It's very hard to do all that by yourself. And I think he did a good job on it. You could tell he was doing it on his own, because a lot of the shots it lingered a little bit too much for my taste. Like he could have cut sooner to get to the next spot. So a lot of time I don't want to say it dragged, because it's not in a bad way, but it dragged in a sense where it could have cut down on stuff that wasn't needed. But when you're by yourself and you got these long shots, that's what happens. If you notice, a lot of shots of him talking, it's just his face pretty much in the screen, on the frame. That's because it's easier to frame it that way than to get a more elaborate framing when you're on your own. So you could tell these things off the bat that he was on his own. But for the lighting was great. The music selections really fit the scenes. Good choice on the music, and just the editing. He did such a good job transitioning from scene to scene. The way the transitions work with the music, and I think even the little sound effects he used with the sheep were just so. Yeah. Again,
Cool.
he could have got real cheesy with that, but he kept it subtle just enough to that it works. So. Kudos for all that. And again, most the cons are just mainly budget reasons. I think if you look at, I did research this, and this isn't accurate, obviously. But IMDb had a box office estimate of $100, which is hilarious for the box office. But I love when filmmakers step out the box and do something different. I appreciate that. So
you know what was one shot too that we didn't talk about that I thought it was probably the most powerful shot in the film is when he would take the shot where he's in the front of the window that has the blinds. I mean, those shots were always him looking outside and inside dark. And that's where he made that one call where he's calling his buddies because I'm really breaking down, I'm really losing it. And that was a powerful scene. But the fact that shot of him in front of the window with the blinds half closed, it's almost once again showed the whole isolation thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
and the dragging that he did could be a metaphor for how time just dragged during quarantine.
Yeah, and the color palette he chose was really well. The color grading, if he did it, I'm sure he did it on his own. It works. Everything about this film, as far as production on a one-man team, did a good job on that. I just wish, like I said, the one thing I didn't really like in the film was the little montage when his friend came in. It just had that montage of his friend doing random things.
Yeah.
I just think that kind of took me out of it for a bit, because I wish he kept it more isolated, just him, and that's it. But when it cut to like someone else doing their everyday their everyday things in their life, it kind of took me out of it. I'll be honest. Like, oh man, I wish he didn't really go in. I didn't want that. I wanted just the character Dan and what he's going through within his head, locked in isolation. But I get why he did it. But
it took me a minute, because when that happened, like I look down, I look up, and I'm like, oh, all right. So he shaved his beard. He got a haircut.
yeah,
He got out,
Yeah.
And I kept looking. I'm like, damn, that beard totally made it look different. And it really took me a minute to realize it's a whole other character.
Yeah.
I just really
it came
thought
out
it was
of nowhere.
him.
That's why.
Right. I thought it was him that he finally felt good. He went and got a haircut, shaved. He's at the beach. I'm like, well, good for him.
He did cut his beard in the film, though.
But I mean, it just like you said, like just when he popped up out of nowhere,
it just came out of nowhere. I just
okay, this is a whole other person. Got it. All right, because I'm like, I just couldn't. Again, I'm like, damn, he looks totally different now.
Oh, we forgot about one thing too, though.
Yeah,
I mean, this movie was a movie about depression, COVID, mourning, and how coping with it. But the funny thing is, after the credits come, here he is talking to the sheep. And then he had the whole like YouTuber going, "No, that's fake, man. That's fake."
I was gonna get to that. That was gonna be my
closing
thoughts.
Talk about it, man.
All right, closing thoughts. I'm gonna start off. That I love that, because the movie's over, so the director's having fun with it, because there's people like that this is gonna be like, nah, this is crap. It's fake. And the way the guy broke it down, he made it seem plausible. You know what? Damn, this guy. He's right. This shit is fake. Like, what? I'm the sucker for believing this. You know what I'm saying? I did. I like and the music choices again with that little, that with the little end credit scene was pretty good. I dug that a lot. Closing thoughts now, GR. What are your closing thoughts on the film? You want to give it a score? What did it do for you?
I'll tell you what. For me, it showed me appreciation for what we do as indie filmmakers. I mean, we're not at his level yet, but I'm dying to get at his level and dying to put more stuff out, because it is this the first 2 minutes, and that's one thing. The first 2 minutes and 37 seconds, he talks about making a film, 8 months, how indie filmers need to start helping each other out, hitting the like button, commenting. I mean, for me, it showed an appreciation for filmmaking.
Yeah.
From the low budget to no budget mark, but I mean, I thought the film was creative. He did a hell of a job with the shots. I'm a sucker for lighting. I thought the story was pretty good. I'm gonna give it now, because it's an indie film. We do gotta, look at it at a different level. But I'm gonna say, to be honest, I didn't find too many flaws in this too, and I did like this a lot. As an indie filmmaker, I'm gonna give it a 4, to be honest. I mean, because it was very creative, it was very different, and for what he did on his own, I mean, that's just that pushes it to the 4.
All right. I didn't hate the film, but what this movie did was one of my top 3 things that just annoy me about movies that they did do it, and I went on and on about it in Hell House. But when he saw the door open and he went there with a candle and didn't turn on a fucking light, like, once again. In those scenes, I get you're trying to build the scare.
And the description of the film, it says he's only armed with a candle at that.
I'm like sitting here like my problem is, and I said this in Hell House, was just like, why is it that all common sense just goes out the window and not one person can just turn the light switch on?
Yeah.
And that takes me out of movies, because I'm sitting there going, fucking put the candle down and go turn the light on. And then Adam's like, well, it's during the pandemic. Maybe he doesn't have power. He's watching. He's got a phone in his hand right now that's recording.
And he's watching movies with the...
And he's watching movies.
He was watching... Oh, God. Hold on. Back to the Future was one. What was the other one?
Yeah, and then he did another movie. He watched CNN, so he had cable.
Yeah.
I mean, so I sat... That was like my one critique. It bothered me. It bothers me when they're doing any movie, and I know it being an indie was just that. Just because... And I know it's to help build it, but my common sense brain just can't get past that. Now, the sheep, let me tell you, the The minute it moved, it would have gone back in the box. I would have wrote a nice "fuck you" letter to my friend and send it back to him. And if the sheet came back to my house, I would have torched him. It's gotta
That
go.
just shows you the mental psychosis, JR, of Daniel.
Yeah.
So for me, I give it a 3.5.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna give it, 3.5 as well. Only like I said, I think he, as far as editing, he could have cut down on some of the lingering shots. If you notice, some takes just lingered way longer than I think they needed to be. Other than that, though, that's my only real complaint as far as direction and editing on the film. But everything else, man, for what it was cool. The story was, and what really pushed it for me was the ending when he buried the necklace, and he had to, and I like the picture of his wife. The fact that he used, like, when she was when she was pretty much like a young adolescent, 8-9 years old around there. I like the fact that he used that instead of like an actual picture of what she looked like at the time. I don't know. That just made it more intimate. I think they were like maybe like
childhood sweethearts.
Yes, thank you. That's what it made me feel. And movies don't do that. They always want to glorify, their partners and stuff. But it was much more intimate, and I felt that. I give him a lot of credit for going that route, and I like that he moved on. But again, I thought he moved on, but then it goes, he's talking to the sheep. So like, I guess they're sticking around. And I like when he says, "You know what? I don't trust you guys, but I need your help." Like, no shit, they tied him up, they drugged him or whatever they did.
Okay, one more thing. They killed his friend. Because his friend was tied up. And he was calling his friend. His friend was tied up, and you hear the sheep.
All right, well, guys, thank you very much. That was Sheep Theater. It's on YouTube for free. Please check it out. One thing I will say, it's got a lot of commercials in it. But again, that supports the filmmaker. So if you guys sit through it, it's all right. I did, and I'm very fucking impatient. Both of you guys know that.
I kept hitting skip. It wasn't working.
You can't do that.
It just showed you the commercial timer.
Yeah,
I'm like,
unless you're a YouTube Prime subscriber or YouTube Premium, where you don't have any commercials. But if that's, then don't worry about what I just said. But stick with it. It's fun. It's a fun movie.
It is.
It's not that long. It's an hour 14 minutes. But hey, man, that's what we do. We're horror fiends, and we're gonna discuss everything from like the blockbusters to the small independent filmmakers that we love to support, because that's our dream as well. So guys, thank you very much. I am Ricky Grimes, Horror Fiend TV, 3 Corners of Horror. JR, Joe, thank you very much, guys. Come back next time. Stay scared. Peace.
Well, thank you for making me a drink. Still wondering how you poured this, but this tastes really weird. Peach and vodka?